Look, I do feel Arsenal will bounce back, by the way. I do feel like their start of the season is poorer than probably the quality of that squad shows, but again, it is about picking up those points, and we know City are probably going to come strong second half of the season. They normally do, and that news around Pep Guardiola's contract extension, I'm sure, will be a shot in the arm to those players. There's also talk that City are trying to tie Erling Haaland down to a new, I think, 4-year, £100 million contract. Which would put him on about 500 grand a week, according to some reports last night. So, maybe this is City trying to tie down Haaland, trying to maybe lure some signings in with the stability of knowing that Guardiola is going to be there. Now, also, really interesting about that Pep Guardiola contract extension has been pointed out by many people, is that there's no break clause in there. There's no relegation clause in there. But it's also very important to point out one thing, and it's been pointed out by Sky and others as well. Pep Guardiola will leave when he wants to leave, contract or no contract. If he turns round and Manchester City are found guilty of the charges and he feels like he's been lied to by the ownership, he'll walk. It's going to be as simple as that. And whether he has to pay out his own contract or not, it is very clear that when Guardiola decides it's time up at Man City, then it's time up at Man City. So I'm interested to see how the reaction's going to be when these charges are eventually dealt with. And actually, on those charges, there is a few things I wanted to bring up on this. 1 second. Right, so the charges for Manchester City unbelievably cover a period from 2009 all the way up to 2022-23. It's crazy. So I'm very interested to see, will Guardiola stick around if they do get found guilty of those charges? Reports suggest City will not be charged. Do they, though? I mean, I've not seen a report to say City won't be charged, mate. I've not seen a report to say, well, actually, it's important we point out they've already been charged. This is just a case of whether they're going to be innocent or guilty. Now, unlike the situation with UEFA, this can't be appealed to the Court of Arbitration for Sport, although it can be appealed. And also, unlike UEFA's situation, there is no time barring of this. So we know Manchester City got off some of those charges previously because they were time barred. There's no such thing with the Premier League. They can go back as far as they want. There is no 6 or 7 year statute of limitations on how long back they can investigate. So one thing that keeps coming up, by the way, with people about this situation is everybody that is pro Manchester City stance, or that feels like perhaps they're not going to be punished. One thing that keeps popping up is people saying, well, the Premier League won't want their leading team, their standard bearers, their high-flying champions to be found guilty and held to account. And I think people genuinely forget one important aspect here. The Premier League is run by the 20 clubs inside the Premier League. They are all shareholders of it. You cannot and will not be able to just stick two fingers up to the 19 other clubs and bow down to Manchester City or Liverpool or Manchester United or any other team, because you have to think of the other 19 teams and the way that the Premier League is structured. They will have to act accordingly and they will have to put their best foot forward, because it's not a great look for the Premier League in general. You've already got European leagues moaning at the money that's in the Premier League. If they feel like the Premier League is also maybe letting City off a bit lightly, I don't think that works out well. So I've always been unsure of what happens, but I've always felt confident that there is going to be a proper investigation, and it won't just be a case of, everyone shrugs their shoulders, because United are looking at this interestingly, Liverpool are looking at it interestingly, Arsenal and any other club. So we'll wait and see what happens with it, but we are getting closer and closer now to a time where perhaps we do get those bits of news.